Hi. Hello. Welcome to the Journaling to Joy live on YouTube. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. I'm so glad that you're here. I have been sharing about journaling, and today is September 21st. If you're watching this live or you're watching it. And I launched this 21-day Journaling to Joy challenge on Instagram and YouTube on September 1st. And so today actually is day 21. Now, you can begin this Journaling to Joy expedition anywhere at any time. And I am really glad that you are here right now. And I want to jump in. I want to jump in and I want to share my story because I married who I thought was the love of my life. I really did. I'm having hair moment here. I married the person that I thought was the love of my life. And in hindsight, at that time in my life, it was the perfect blessing and the perfect lesson for me. And I had to turn to journaling. I had to turn to something to help because when my marriage started to break down and my now ex-husband started to lose his mind, because that's what happened. He started to lose his mind, and I was caught in the middle of that. And not only was I caught in the middle of that, I didn't know where to turn. I really didn't know where to turn. And when I knew he was suicidal and I knew he was suffering and I knew we might not make it through this, I was literally on the floor of my kitchen and I had a notebook and a pen and I wrote 2 words. I wrote the 2 words, "Dear God." And those 2 words made an enormous difference in my life because on the pages of my journal, what I did was I just gave it all away. I gave it to God. I gave God everything. I gave God all of my pain, all of my shame, all of my questions. And all I wanted in the beginning was for it to get better, for him to get better, for to know that we were going to be okay. And that's not what happened. As a matter of fact, it got worse because within a couple weeks of starting that, praying to God to help heal this man, that I found out he had been telling our friends that we were getting a divorce. But he wasn't telling me. And the way I found this out was a girlfriend of mine walked up to me and she said, "I'm so sorry to hear about your divorce." To which I said, "What divorce?" And when I went to ask him about it, he didn't want to talk about it. And I was being rather insistent that I need to talk about this. I need to know what's going on because I was in living in fear every day that I would come home from work and find him dead. Find out that he had, in fact, taken his own life. And every day I came home from work, I was living in fear. And now all of a sudden, here I am trying to make everything work for us. And I find out that he's been telling our friends that we're getting divorced and he doesn't want to talk about it. And the way he responded to that is he threw me up against a wall and he choked me. And in that moment, I froze. I froze. I actually quite literally left my physical body because it was so shocking. It was so unbelievable that that is what was happening at that moment that I had to separate myself from it because I couldn't believe that the man I would have taken a bullet for had just thrown me up against a wall, put his hands around my throat, and threatened my life. And he let me go and he calmly turned and he walked out the door and I barricaded myself in the house. And I made a few phone calls. I called my parents and my mom was furious. My mom was my mama bear. She protected me. She was furious. And then my dad got on the phone, and my dad was really, really calm. He was so calm. And I remember sobbing, and he said, "Joellen, go check your credit card statements and your bank account." And I was like, "Dad, why?" And he just said, "Joellen, go check your credit card statements and your bank account." I'm like, "Dad, he wouldn't do anything like that." But sure enough, he had been. He had put $6,000 down on a car without consulting with me, on a credit card that was mine. I added his name to it because he had been in medical school and then his residency, and I had supported our lifestyle. He was taking women out to dates on my credit cards. He was taking women out on dates on my credit cards. He was sending them flowers on my credit card. So I was financing his infidelity, and I had no idea any of this was going on. I was completely blindsided by it. And this was the beginning of 10 years of utter hell for me. And it was utter hell because all I wanted was for him to come back and for us to go back to the way we were. And that is not what was happening. That was definitely not what was happening. And for a few years, I held out hope that we would work it out, and we didn't. And then I went out there trying to date because I had made up this story in my thoughts that if this man could leave me, and not only leave me, lie to me and steal money from me while cheating on me, and then he tried to kill me, then I must be like the lowest piece of dirt in the world. I must be absolutely positively unworthy of love. Worse, I must be like kryptonite for love. And so what did I do? What anybody would do is I started to go out and try to date again because I was looking for validation that I was worthy of love, and I needed another human being to reflect back to me that I was worthy. And do you know what happened? I was shape-shifting myself. I was molding myself into these configurations that weren't recognizable to me. And I was doing that because I was trying to anticipate what he would need from me so he would love me. And I was trying to perform. And so I never got to be me. I never got to be authentic. And I was doing this so he wouldn't leave, and he always left. He always left. And there were days I didn't want to go on. There were days I didn't want to go on. There were extended periods of time when I would go to bed and not get out, and I would drink until I would forget. And then the next day I would wake up and I would remember, and I'd be hungover and I'd be in self loathing. And I was not kind to myself during this period of time. And it was through the pages of my journal, something very simple as a notebook and a basic pen, that actually saved me and kept me here on this earth. Because when I was in so much pain, I would pull out my journal and I would write 2 words, "Dear God," and I would give it all away. I would give it all away. I would say, "God, this is what I'm going through. I'm feeling this way. I am in so much pain. Please help, please help, please help." And when I would sit with tears rolling down my face and falling onto the pages of the journal, I would start to hear answers to everything I was experiencing. These inspirational thoughts that just drifted into my mind. And they were always kind. They were always honest. They were always compassionate. And these thoughts were me but they were coming from somewhere else as well. I was connecting to my God source, my highest version of myself. And the way I would explain it, the way it felt was that way smarter version of Joellen than this very human version of Joellen would actually show up and answer my questions. And what I started to realize is that I was receiving the most beautiful messages from God and from source energy and from the universe. And it was echoing into me as truth. And no one else had to tell me this. Here's the thing, no one was telling me what to do, no one was pointing me in the right direction. I was discovering it by myself. And the most amazing thing happens when you discover answers for yourself. No one can take them away from you because they're part of your cellular structure. They're part of your DNA. And they were always beautiful gifts. And they were not always easy to hear. Like when I started to learn I was selling out on myself, that I was compromising my values, my needs, my wants, because I was trying to perform for another human being. That's hard to hear. But here's the truth. If I was 100% responsible for what was happening in my life, then I was also 100% responsible for making the choices that would change the trajectory of my life. And when I would stop and I would focus and I would choose to be with the highest source of power I could, which I call God. It doesn't matter if you call it God, universe, source, goddess, even if you write to yourself. When you are being honest and you ask for help, help can show up. And it began to transform my life, my belief system. And I remember the moment where I really started to understand what had happened between me and my now ex-husband. And we're talking 8 to 10 years later. On the pages of my journal, I asked a question, and the answer that I came to understand, the thought that drifted into my mind as pure consciousness, was that I had never stopped loving him. I had never stopped loving my ex-husband, but my ex-husband stopped loving me. And because of that, I was in great shame. I was in a shame spiral and falling deep into the darkness of my soul, into the abyss that I was creating, because I had to hide until I had evidence that I was worthy of love. But none of that was true. I was always worthy of love. I simply forgot, and I placed all of my value on another human being's shoulders. I gave away my power. I gave him my power by believing that when he was in my life, I was worthy of love. And when he left my life, that I was no longer worthy of love. And it was something to be embarrassed and ashamed of. And it wasn't true because I was the only one saying it. I was the only one saying it. No one else in the world was telling me this. But I was now looking for all the examples in life that were proving to me that I was never worthy of love. Instead of looking at all the examples in my life of my friends, my family, who loved me and wanted me to be happy and saw the best in me. I was choosing one single perspective, and that one perspective was devastating to me. And on the pages of my journal, not only did I understand that, but I also came to understand that once I love someone, I never stop loving them. And I was allowed to love my now ex-husband. I was allowed to open my heart and allow the love to flow through, regardless of whether he was in my life or not. Because not being able to give the love toward him was really what was causing me the most pain. Because I'd never stopped feeling the emotion, but I was stifling it and blocking it. And I remember when it happened, it was the most beautiful gift I got, because what I was able to do was stop suffering, stop the self-loathing, stop the anger and the hatred that I was harming myself because I was out there trying to date. And I was not being my authentic self, which meant I never felt comfortable in the fit of my own skin. I never felt like I was enough. And when I got to see that however I was a perfect version of me, and that I have this deep need to share love. And once I love someone, it never ends. And that it was okay that I was allowed to share love unconditionally with someone who wasn't even in my life any longer, to someone whom I had been thinking hateful, angry, harmful thoughts because of everything that had happened in my past. And I was bringing all of that forward and projecting it. And it was all because of this beautiful condition of love that I wasn't allowing myself to experience. All of that came out of the pages of my journal. I still have all these journals. I have a huge box full of notebooks from the year 2000 on. So 25 years of my life. It's very heavy. I don't pull it out a lot because it's really heavy. But the fascinating thing is I can go back and I can look at how far I've come and how much I've healed because of the most simple, basic technique of picking up a pen and a piece of paper and writing, "Dear God," and telling God the truth. And by the way, like there'd be times I would be trying to whitewash it to convince myself I was fine. And I'm like, why am I trying to lie here? God already knows the truth. I mean, if God knows everything, God already knows all the BS I've been throwing out into the world, already knows all the mistakes that I've made. And I never felt judged. I never felt unsafe telling God the truth. It was only me who was trying to whitewash it. So I didn't have to deal with it. And so the faster I could sit with my journal and be honest about the mistakes I was making, about selling out on what my gut and my soul and my heart were screaming for, the sooner I was able to see that I couldn't do that any longer. And here's the great thing, and this happens a lot now, is I still journal. The journaling has gotten even deeper. I realize that I can talk to loved ones who've passed and have a conversation with them, like my mom, who died in the middle of my divorce. And I can feel her around me when I write to her and talk to her. That I can ask for guidance and guidance shows up. And that there are angels and archangels all around us, and guides and teachers and loved ones. And the Holy Trinity is there. Jesus, whom I call Yeshua, because in my notebook it started to show up. Like, I'm like, who, when I asked, who am I talking to? I kept hearing Joshua, Joshua, Joshua. And I wrote Joshua 3 times. And then a couple days later, when I was writing in my notebook, I realized it was Yeshua, which is Jesus's real name when that human being was walking the face of this earth. And I didn't need an intermediary. I didn't need an intermediary. I didn't need to go to church and trust someone else's version of events and their guidance. I could go inside and I could start to ask for guidance. I could start to ask for revelation. I could start to ask for understanding and know I was being led for the good of all and my highest good, and trust that process. And that's why I'm here. That is what I am trying to share. And the 21-day Journaling to Joy challenge was all about creating the habit of spending 5 minutes a day, even if you don't have anything to say, just sitting in the 5 pillars, which I learned through my journaling, which are creating perspective, practicing practicing gratitude, practicing acceptance and allowing, accepting people exactly as they are and allowing them to make their own choices. That was the hardest one for me, by the way. Hardest one. For telling my truth and speaking my truth. And then the 5th pillar is love. But when I was using those 5 pillars, and I was asking to see things from a different perspective, when I got grateful for everything that was going on in that moment, because I knew it was bringing me somewhere I needed to go. And I just trusted and had faith and accepted the journey and allowed the path to show up. And I told my truth along the way that this is challenging, this is scary, this is painful. I need things that I'm not getting. And then just approached all of it through a lens of love. I got free, no matter what anyone else does. And we can all do this. Nobody taught me how to do this. It evolved over time. And the 21-day Journaling to Joy practice is giving cues so you can create your own journaling practice. You don't have to follow the methodology that I'm sharing. You can just sit with a piece of paper and pen and start writing. You don't need me to show you how to do this. And so many people wind up blocked. They wind up not sitting down and not knowing what to write. And so they feel like they're setting themselves up to failure. That's why I created the template to give you guidance, somewhere to look that day for what to write, but you don't have to follow it. You are absolutely able to do this without me. I mean, believe me, if I can sit for the last 25 years with a pen and a notebook and discover the most beautiful sacred blessings about myself, you can also. I'm not special. I am, quite honestly, a complete fuck up at times. I still mess things up. I still make mistakes. I still get triggered. I still wind up in a painful place where all I'm doing is trying to protect myself. The difference is I now can ask for help to understand why I had those reactions and ask for grace to show up and teach me so I can grow and learn. And grace always shows up, always, no matter what. And when I elevate my energy, the whole world shifts. The whole world shifts. And I'm creating a reality that I've always dreamed of. And it's all come out of journaling. Stop, choose, start, 3 seconds to happy, all came out of my journal. The entire process of it. My healing all came out of my journal. The 21-day journaling to joy, all came out of my journal. No one was telling me how to do it. I just loved the process so much. And the feelings that I have when I'm sitting and talking to source energy, to God, to Jesus, to my departed loved ones, angels, archangels, that if I could do it in such a pure form, I wanted to just share it and give it away. And that's why I'm here. That's why I've been shifting my platform on Instagram. That's why I've started going on TikTok, which at times I call TikToxic. God bless. I got attacked the other day for something I put up. But because I wasn't attached to the outcome and I knew that I needed to look through the lens of love at all of those responses, because if someone's willing to just attack me out of the blue and make up lies, my job is to only send them love, because they're obviously suffering or they would never cry out like that. And then to come here to YouTube, where thank God for YouTube, because they don't censor us at all. They allow us to have a conversation that's open and honest and just give away everything that I've learned. And that's all I'm here to do, is give it away. Give it away for free. Give away love and peace and joy for free. I mean, seriously, if one human being who is watching this or takes on the challenge or starts journaling, if they start to feel more comfortable in the fit of their own skin, if they start to allow themselves to feel a mustard seed of love enter their soul, and I had any part in helping them discover that within themselves, that's the greatest gift I could ever have. I've been working in fitness for a long time. Let's say 35 years. Since I graduated college. It's a long time. And so often my clients would come back to me and say, "Oh my God, Joellen, thank you. I thank you." And I would look at them and I would say, "You did all the hard work. I just pointed you in the right direction. You lifted every weight. You did every step on that treadmill or elliptical. You did this. Let yourself have that acknowledgement, because you could have quit at any point along the way and you didn't. All I did was keep pointing you in the right direction. That's all I'm doing here. I'm just pointing you in the right direction. You're the one who has to do the hard work. You're the one who has to do the reps. You have to do the squats, the push-ups, swim the laps, run the mile. You are the one who has to do it. But that is also beautiful, because you get to say how this goes. You get a say in how your life goes. Maybe for the first time. Now, again, going back to fitness, I walked into a gym January 2nd, 1990. I was in college. I was a junior in college, and wasn't happy with my weight, and everything changed. Like, I got addicted to it, because for the first time in my life, I got to say how it went. I got to feel empowered. I got to feel literally strong, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally, that when I went to the gym, I got it done. And there was nothing getting in my way. And it was absolute freedom and power. And it allowed me to gain a strong sense of personal identity around making choices, and slowly over time making healthier choices and not torturing myself. honoring myself, because there's been times where I didn't feel good in the fit of my own skin and I was not kind to myself, specifically with food and, abusing. I'm just going to say the way it is: diet pills, laxatives, abusing myself by choosing to not eat and starve myself, like it was a game, because I didn't feel worthy of love if I didn't look a specific way. I really had that going on. I absolutely positively had that going on from the time I was about 12 years old until I was well into my 20s. And exercise allowed me to become more empowered, to feel positive about myself in a way I had never experienced it before. That's how journaling also occurs to me. I stumbled into it because I wasn't happy. I was in a really painful, tragic time in my life, and I chose to ask for help. And every time I asked, help showed up. And it's like that Jelly Roll song, Favor. I only talk to God when I need a favor. It was kind of like that to begin with. I was only asking God for help when I was in the most pain. But eventually, especially after that first 10 years, I started to do it regularly because I started to feel so much elation, so much joy, so much love, so much peace inside of my heart, inside of my soul, that I kept going back to it. And now, ever since about 2010, I am journaling 4, 5, 6 times a week, especially on the weekends because I have more time. I can sit for a longer period of time. During the week, I get up early and I'm journaling before I get ready for work and before I work out. So I'm waking up extra early and I just don't have as much time. But it's purely an act of self love to sit and to communicate with the highest source of power that I've ever discovered. And that sense of power is what I call God. So that's what I wanted to talk about here today. And I know there's a few people here because I could see you, but I don't know who it is. Do you have any questions? Thanks for being here, by the way. I can't thank you enough. And if you are here and you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, would you please? I am brand new at this. Again, the Journaling to Joy I'm giving away for free. I would love to be able to start to get reimbursed by many things like advertising. And the larger my subscription base gets, the more I am able to do that. And then I don't have to pass the bill on to you. I can just keep giving away this stuff for free. And that just feels like a beautiful marriage that we both win. So if you have any questions, you can put them into the chat. Or remember, if you're on any of my other social media platforms, you can always reach out to me. I do try my best to answer every single comment and question. And that's what I wanted to talk about, is how journaling saved my life, how I went from the lowest of lows, and I won't even say the highest of highs, just to a place of beautiful peace and joy. It's Father Richard Rohr who says, the opposite of more is not less. The opposite of more is enough. And when you really start to know you are already enough, you are already created in the likeness and the image of God. You are already created exactly as you were meant to be. The body that you're in, the family that you were born into, was exactly what your soul was asking for in this lifetime. So it could learn the karmic lessons that it needed to learn. The sooner you understand that you are already enough, you don't have to Do things that later you won't be proud for. Because when we act out of our ego, we often make choices that are actually harmful for us. And I'm working through A Course in Miracles, and this is the first time I'm ever gonna say this part of what I'm about to share publicly. I've never said this publicly. So I've been hearing about A Course in Miracles from a number of different people. 1,000 years ago, I had a friend who did it, but she never shared with me what it was. So I was aware of it, for the last 25 years. And then I became familiar with Gabby Bernstein's work, her books, and she would talk about A Course in Miracles. And then I started to hear from Buddha Betty Guadino, and she was talking about A Course in Miracles, and I kept hearing about it, and so what I did was I bought the book, and then when I got it, it's literally like a Bible. It's like 1,300 pages, and I'm like, "I am not gonna read this." But I will listen to it on audio because I love my Audible subscription, and so what I did was I bought it on Audible. So I have the hard copy so I can read through p passages that I may not be so familiar with, and then, but I was listening to it on Audible, and a lot of people can't get through A Course in Miracles because it's very heavy. It reads like stereo instructions. It's really a heavy text. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. Because I've been journaling for the last 25 years, A Course in Miracles made absolute sense to me. A Course in Miracles, I have goosebumps right now, is a channeled text. It was written in the 70s, and it was written by a woman who was a professed atheist, raised Jewish, and she was a psychologist, and she was working at a university in New York City. And there was a lot of turmoil in her life, in her partnership with her romantic partner, as well as her professional life. And she just decided, she said, I'm just going to try to do something different. And she started to hear this inspired message. The way I was describing that, when I'm writing, it's like thoughts came through my head and I would just write them down. And it's inspired, it's from somewhere else. She started to have this channeled message come through her, and she asked her partner to write it down. And it wound up being A Course in Miracles, of which there's 4 volumes of The Course in Miracles. And in the writing, she realized it was Jesus talking to her, because he told her that Christ was coming through to this profound atheist, raised Jewish. But she knew it was profound and she just wrote it down, but she never wanted to be attached to it. She saw herself as just the conduit. She never wanted her name attached to the teachings. It was actually her other professionals who attached her name to it, and she was very uncomfortable with that role because she said it wasn't her, it came through her. What I have been hearing in A Course in Miracles is what I've been journaling about for the last 10, 15 years. It's the same conversation. It's different language. And it's profound. That I've been in this conversation with higher source energy for this long. And it's one of the things that I'll tell you happens all the time when you start doing this is I get messages in here, profound messages of love and compassion and forgiveness. And sometimes they are so far off, and I ask the universe, I say, please confirm this in life. Please let me have confirmation of this just so I can trust it. And confirmation always shows up. It shows up in a video. It shows up in a teacher I follow. It shows up in a book. Exactly what I was understanding from my journal shows up somewhere else. And when I tell you some of the things are incredibly profound, and then they're confirmed, you have nothing but faith. And I see Tanya, thanks for being here. You know what, Tanya, so many people are awakening right now. That's People are awakening. Ever since 2012, people are opening up their spiritual intuitive receiving ability. And so there's also that level of comfort out there right now that we can have more dialogue around this. You know, I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 16 years, literally. I went to Catholic college as well. And during my divorce, I'd always been fascinated by world religions, but I started to read other texts, specifically Buddhism, and I felt like it was just resonating with me and resonating with me. And there was one author named Pema Chodron. She's a Buddhist monk, and she has written many books, but she's an American from New Jersey. I live in Pennsylvania. She's from New Jersey. She'd been married twice, and when her second marriage was failing, she was having these, this need to understand life, and she was profoundly shocked by her rage. She didn't want to act on it, but she had this need to rage, and she said something else needs to go on here. And she started to read, and she found Buddhism. And then she started to teach. When I was reading her work, it was like she was speaking directly to me. Like her experiences were my experiences. And so when we need things to align and messages to show up, God and the universe keep trying to work and send all of that to us so we don't feel so alone anymore. And I'm really thrilled. Thank you for sharing with me that you're in a similar awakening experience, because you are not alone. And I've been afraid to talk about this for a while. And I just didn't want to bring God into the conversation of healing because I didn't want to turn people off. And what's been really profoundly obvious is that I had to start talking about it, that I was being asked to start talking about it, to bring it forward. Because if I can start to talk about it, other people may be comfortable about talking about it. And people who are struggling can start to look inside of themselves and into their heart and start to understand their worthiness of love, because we are all worthy. We're born worthy of love. And the process of life causes us to forget. And it's designed that way. We're supposed to forget that we are worthy of love, because the remembering is the gift. It is an absolute gift. The remembering is the gift. So is the forgetting. And if you really think about it, you have to get grateful for the scenarios that caused you to forget, so you would actively start to work to remember. And that's why I get grateful for all of it. I get grateful for all of it, because if my marriage hadn't ended, I would not know this version of me. I would have not been in so much pain that I had to get on my knees sobbing and ask for help. If I hadn't gone through hell, I wouldn't be here I would have always believed that I had married somebody who was above me because I believed I married up and I had no idea why he chose me. And none of that is true. None of it is true. And so I hope you're discovering the same thing. I really, really do. I hope you are discovering the same thing. And your discovery is within you and it's in your language and your heart. So no one can ever take it away from you again. Because once you know, no one can ever take it from you, ever. Because once you've discovered it on your own, not because someone else told you. That's why I don't want to tell you what to do. I I so desire just to be the person with a shared experience who helps you find it yourself. Because if I ask you to do it the way I want you to do it, I take away your power. But if I give you the tools and let you build the boat to sail on, I've given you your power. And that is, for me, a beautiful gift. And the more, honestly, the more other people get to understand who they are, the more I get to understand who I am. And the more other people love themselves, the more blessed I feel. It's like a win-win. And that's really what I wanted to talk about today. So I really do hope that you are getting to live a life that you love and that you are absolutely profoundly moved by, just in the little interactions, just in telling people in your life that you love them with expecting nothing in return. Because when you start to be able to find the space to just give away love, give away love, give away love, so much more love comes back to you. And I really do believe all we are here to do is to learn to love. And by the way, it's easy to love the people who agree with you. The gift is unconditionally loving the people who challenge you. The gift is unconditionally loving the people who challenge you. You just are giving love and allowing them to be exactly as they are and accepting them exactly as they are without expectation and letting them know that there's nothing they've done and there's nothing they hadn't done to not be worthy of that love. And the sacred gift is giving it to the people who are the easiest to turn your back on. That's the sacred gift of love. And if we can master that, we've solved everything. We've solved everything. This world right now, the energy is rising and people are acting out. And I'm not, instead of feeling helpless, the only thing I could do is send love and send love to everyone involved. Everyone. Because doing anything else for me is going to cause more suffering. And so when I sit back and in my journal, I ask what I'm supposed to do, The answer is always be love always. Be love always. Give love away and love will return. And that's straight from the page of my journal. So that's all I wanted to share today. I would invite you to start journaling on a regular basis. Write 2 words, and they can be to whomever you want. You can even write to yourself. You could say, "Dear," and your name, and have a conversation like you're talking to your best friend that you trust and that you know they're going to tell you your truth for your highest good and the good of all. Because in that sacred space, miracles show up. And that's why I keep saying you are becoming a miracle. If you are in this process and you are at the lowest point of your life, you are becoming a miracle. Because when you're willing to say, I don't know, I'm in pain and I need help, then help can start to show up. And the answers that you receive are a miracle. It's called the Holy Instant in A Course in Miracles. Because when you shift your perspective and you return to love, you are returning to your essence of who you truly are and resonating at the highest vibration. And only good can come out of that. So that's it. I pray that this was helpful for someone. Thank you for being here, whether you're watching this live or watching the replay. And those of you who came live, thank you for accepting the invitation. I really hope it makes a positive difference for you. And please let me know your thoughts, your feelings, the impact it has. Even if you don't agree, I love those conversations as well. And just remember, please get all the love today and every day. You truly do deserve it. You do.